This is basically a response video to Joe, Darwin's hamster, but I guess it's to Matt also, just in this whole discussion of psychology. The psychology of psychology. It's almost like it has its own psychology. It's not really a science, I guess I would argue. It's sort of a I don't even know. It's to try to examine in the context of this idea of normalcy, or even of the idea of a maximized, or let's say a perfect human psychology. How would we even describe that? What is the balance between emotion and logic, and all these subtleties? And so much of it is, as you sort of described it, it's a strategy. It's a game of interaction with other people, and how to sort of maximize those interactions to get the most out of them. And even that gets to be a question of, well, how much of your strategy should be for your benefit or for their benefit, or who's taking what from who. I mean, how much deception should we be part of the mix? How much should we use people, because there's so much of that in relationships, friendships. You see it all the time. Maybe people are friends because, well, the person's useful. And as soon as the person doesn't become useful anymore, well, the friendship just sort of dies. And there's just, our whole, even trying to figure out what this thing is on top of our shoulders, this brain, and, but to me, it's just the biggest problem I have. I've been through some therapy. Psychologists, they have this preconceived notion of normalcy. That's the standard, and everything that is an impediment to this blending into the normal is the thing to be eradicated. And it really, to me, it's so much more about the wrong piece of paper here. Understanding just how the brain is built. And we are basically, I've made the point, we got this lizard reflex brain, and we got this conditioned brain, which is really the big one. And then we have this magnificent, logical, rational thinking machine on top of it all. And figuring out which one should have control over us, at what time and in what circumstances. It's just so hard, because ideally I don't want to be so emotional about things. You just have this perfectly intellectual argument, but you can't even communicate with people that way, because if you don't add the passion, if you don't add the inflection, they don't even get the message. I mean, it's such a difference between these videos and, say, written text, because the text has been sanitized of all the passion, of all the nuance, the communication that has to be almost personal, that has to inflect to the other person, for it to be understood what is being said. Exactly how it's being said is as important as what is being said in many cases. So anyway, if the objective is happiness, then the simple answer is lobotomy, whatever. You whap out the parts of the brain that make you think too much, and you're going to be happy. I mean, people of diminished capacity are generally happy. You give them a lollipop, they're happy. Pet them on the head, they're happy. So life is simple. And then as soon as you have this brain that can think and worry and see futility in life, and see futility in their aspirations. I mean, it's no good hoping for something if it's like almost, some ignorant person could think about the lottery. Oh, I have like a 1 in 100 chance of winning, or they have some kind of notion. And you take away that notion and say, explain to them, well, here's a book of 8 million dots, and it's a half-inch thick, and they realize how improbable their success is going to be. It takes all the fun out of their little hopeful adventure. And that's the real I think more than anything else, that's what psychologists and psychiatrists are trying to undo, is just the fact that people have realized that their aspirations are not going to be compatible with the real life they're going to have to live, that they're going to want, and that those wants aren't going to get them anywhere. You know, that they're going to be left unfulfilled, and it's that disappointment that, you know, leads to depressions and other, you know, I'm stuck in a life and I don't like it, and and it's, you know, people get deflated and defeated. But how you ever create this balance is always going to be artificial. I mean, psychologists are, that's why I don't call it science, is because they're almost, they encourage, they get rid of one false notion and replace it with another false notion. You know, they try to get rid of these negative thinking, even though it might be realistic, and replace it with some sort of delusionary positive thinking, because at least the positive has a smile and is happy, and that's their objective, is just to make the person, you know, function in this world. And you know, but that's the question, is whether that's, I don't know if that has any validity. I mean, I don't know if we should all be Stepford wives, if we all should just be marching through a life like, you know, mechanically, and do as the machine says we should do. And so, but it does get complicated. I mean, I'm a perfect example in some ways, because I have a conditioning. The conditioned part of my brain is shit. I mean, it's just completely fucked. I'm very much like a zoo animal pacing back and forth all day. I mean, I'm trapped in a conditioning that is just stifling. It just, you know, so controlling, so limiting. And because I have no compatibility with this civilization circumstance. I mean, I'm definitely not a wild animal that finds, you know, captivity survivable. It just doesn't go with my nature, so to speak. But then I have this brain, you know, this intellect that is separate. I mean, it is distinct. It can be, it doesn't have to be owned by the conditioning. It can function separate and above it. And yeah, so I mean, I can have a conversation, I can talk about ideas, I can do all this other crap, and I'm not controlled by the conditioning. And I guess in some respect that's what we all are, though. I mean, in some respect, if you pull the brain open, I mean, all you're going to find is a stomach and a penis, and, you know, those are the things controlling us, is this want and need and bullshit that's in there. And you know, we just kind of cosmetically try to suppress that or control that. I won't say suppress, it's probably the wrong word. You know, but we interact in a more civilized and complex way because we have this intelligence that, you know, adapts us to the world we have to live in and the norms of that world. And, you know, but there's definitely a battle going on, and there are definitely distinct forces fighting with each other inside our heads. And developing a strategy really just depends on what you've established as the goal. I mean, is the goal to be a productive citizen, or is the goal to be happy? You know, and there could be a whole other range of goals, but I mean, you have to have a different strategy depending on where you're trying to end up, what your objective is. I mean, is life a destination, or is life the journey? I mean, for some people, it's all about the journey. It's all about the experience. And for people like myself, it's all about the end result. When you're, you know, dead and buried, what is the net value of your existence? What did it accomplish? You know, so that, like I said, but that changes the whole definition of the psychology you're going to need to fulfill that destiny. And unfortunately, I think there's this, like I said, there's a whole block here in the middle, this conditioned part that we just really can't do much about. I mean, reconditioning is difficult. You know, I mean, psychologists can give people a positive idea, but it takes time for that to seep into conditioning. They can, you know, it's just you can't alter that conditioning in any kind of. You just can't take a pill and make it better. It is software, but it's software that's really hardly, it's really written into the system, and it's hard to step past it. It's hard to get through it, and almost out of time. So to me, that's, the deal is trying to figure out that part of the human brain, the conditioned part, is the real